Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for staying cool under the withering cross-examination of my Republican colleagues. So I just really have a different view than the chairman, than Mr. Duffy, as to what's going on in the economy. We might as well start with all the records being set by Dow Jones. It's up from 6,500 at the end of George Bush to 18,000. The S&P from about 700 to 2,100. The NASDAQ is 3 times what it was. Foreclosures are down, very low. There's been a tremendous improvement across pretty much all sectors, from manufacturing to hotels to whatever. So when they're talking about calming the markets and you're causing them to roil, I want to thank you for rebuilding the markets from the recession that we were in at the end of George Bush. And I don't know if you have your report in front of you, but there are some very important graphs that I'd like you to take a look at if you have your report in front of you. So let's take a look, just as easy ones, starting with 4.1.4. That is just for, under the Obama administration, we see oil imports drop and oil production increased like we haven't seen in decades. Do you see that one?
I do.
How about 4.1.6, civilian unemployment rate dropping like a rock? This is on page 20 of the report after the 2007-2008 recession. You see that? All right, but now let's talk about FSOC. So if you would turn forward in your report to page 62 and 63. I want to look at graphs 5.3.16 and 5.3.19. See those?
Yep.
So can you tell us what graph 5.3.16 is?
Now you're I've read the words. I'm looking at some of these graphs.
All right, so let me tell you what it is, and then you can expand on it if you like. So as the recession took place starting in 2008, 2007, 2008, we saw loan loss reserves fall, so that banks couldn't withstand more and more losses. But since FSOC was created in 2010, what do you see in terms of the loan loss reserves? They've almost tripled.
Yeah, and we're seeing performing loans doing better, and we're seeing the foreclosure issue settle down. Okay,
now let's look at the one that's really quite telling, and that's 5.3.19, FDIC insured failed institutions. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And my friend, the chairman, was talking about this recovery and why isn't it bigger other than the fact we have 13 million new jobs. We see pensions at all-time high, but under Republican administrations, and I think between 1980 and 1990 we had the Reagan administration and the first George Bush administration. Look at the number of failed institutions. You see that?
I do.
Okay, then it falls off to virtually zero under the Clinton administration. There were no bank failures almost. Do you see that?
Yes.
Then under the second George Bush, we see a tremendous spike in failed institutions. You see that? So now it's fallen off precipitously. We're here to talk about the FSOC and about Dodd-Frank and putting some structure back into the market so that we don't have a failed banking system. Would you like to comment on that?
Congressman, I think that you have talked about the improvement in the economy in a very compelling way. Obviously, the graphs illustrate it, but so does the number of people working every day. I think that there's no doubt, but that the steps we've taken through Wall Street reform and FSOC have made our system safer. We also have an economic recovery underway, which is why everything is also getting better. What I don't think we can do is kind of rest comfortably that there's no problem out there to worry about, because what will happen is we'll get to the down point of a business cycle, there will be stress in the system, and we owe it to the American people to make sure we're in a position when times get tough that we don't go back to the 2007, 2008 kind of situation. That's exactly what we're doing in FSOC.
And I completely agree with you, and that's why you need the loan loss reserves so that you can withstand a downturn. That's why we take into consideration these precautions. If I were
That's why you need capital.
If I were my Republican friends, I'd be grasping at this liquidity straw too, given the overall recovery of the economy. But I want to thank you, and I want to thank the President for putting this economy back on track. And I yield
Thanks,
back.
Congressman.